Are you having a hard time figuring out what to get Dad for Father's Day? You should check out Row 1 Brand's Vintage Pictorum Gallery. They have America's best sports art. With over 7,200 historic sports prints, you're assured to find something unique for Dad this Father's Day. Instead of a boring old tie, get him a historic baseball photo taken by Henry High Sandom at the historic Polo Grounds Stadium in New York City during the 1894 Temple Cup. Or, if he's an NFL buff, check out the 1963 vintage NFL poster. These are so good looking that you'll be amazed how they turn out. Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1 and save 15% off your order.
My journey of sports history knowledge continues. Today, I tracked down the origin and the meaning of the New York Knicks NBA basketball franchise, and I have some of my friends from the Gridiron Uniform database telling me about the revisions in uniforms. It's all coming up in just a moment. Hi, my name's Darren Hayes, and I know you've heard me on the Pigskin Dispatch talking about football history for years. Well, now I'm on a new mission, a quest to find sports history in other sports as well as football by learning through the jerseys and the apparel and the gear that the players wore and the franchises supplied their teams. It's an educational trip, and I'm taking you with me day by day, player by player, uniform by uniform. The Sports Jersey Dispatch.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my sports history friends. This is Darren Hayes of the Sports Jersey Dispatch, and welcome to the program once again, where we have a great little bit of information that we're going to share on my quest to learn more about sports history. And first, we have a little segment that I learned a little bit on my own. Then we have some from some of my friends from a recent interview with the Gridiron Uniform database guys of Tim Brulia, Larry Schmidt, and Bill Schaefer on their views of the uniform. Before that, here's what I've learned. Probably going to be showing my age, but many of us that are a little bit older remember the old commercials for the National Enquirer magazine, where they would say, "Inquiring minds want to know." Well, I was never a subscriber or a reader of the National Enquirer, but my mind is always inquiring things on sports history. That's what this website and this podcast are all about, the Sports Jersey Dispatch. It's my quest to go through and try to figure out some things and learn some new things about sports history. So one thing that came to my mind is, where did the word or the name of the New York Knicks comes from? Now, Nick is not a common word used in our American version of the English language, so I guess I need to first find out what the answer is what in the world is a Nick, starting with a K? So I dug into some research mode on this one, and Nick is an abbreviated nickname, which probably most people know, no pun intended with the name nickname, but for the word Knickerbockers, which is in fact the official formal name of the New York City NBA franchise. Now, a Knickerbocker is a style of pants that original settlers of New York City, the Dutch, wore when they founded the town in 1625, as New Amsterdam was the name of the city. It was common for these Dutch men to wear a style of pants known as Knickerbockers, and it was a very distinguishing trait for the group. All right, we still have this style of trousers today, or pants, worn by men and women, but we know them by the nickname of knickers. Not Knicks or Knickerbockers, but knickers, short for Knickerbockers. According to the website of culturetrip.com, where we got a lot of this information for today's article, in 1809, famed author Washington Irving solidified the ties between the city, which was renamed New York City in 1664 by the English settlers, and Knickerbockers by publishing a satirical history of New York, later known as A Knickerbocker's History of New York, under the pseudonym Diedrich Knickerbocker. Now, Irving's text introduced the word to represent any New York City resident who could trace his or her ties back to the original Dutch settlers. Well, the term Knickerbocker, after this famous reference, was solidified as another name for anything New York City. You didn't have to be of Dutch ancestry and be an original settler. Anybody that lived in New York would become that Knickerbocker. In fact, a character was created that was a very popular symbol in the Big Apple of a dude called Father Knickerbocker. He had the old triangle hat and the buckles on his shoes. I was more expecting, some wooden loafers on there being Dutch, but hey, what are you going to do? And he also had a big powdered wig. We have an illustration of a early 20th century magazine cover that has Father Knickerbocker on it. Puck Magazine has it with a political cartoon, courtesy of Wikimedia Commons, so you want to check him out there. And then it goes to the hard courts, and I get it. The Knickerbocker is New York. So how does it translate to the name of an NBA franchise? An article on culturetrip.com fills us in on this too. New York's basketball franchise was awarded to owner Ned Irish in 1946 as a charter member of the 11-Man Basketball Association of America, the BAA, which would later merge with the National Basketball League, NBL, to form the NBA 3 years later, 1949. Mr. Irish put together a group to name the team. And there were some, the leaders of Madison Square Garden, and I think one of his general manager of the team, maybe the coach, and some other people that would be in the know. And they all put the names of what they wanted to name this new franchise's moniker in a hat, and they didn't pulled them out and tried to see what they had. And the most popular ones had some reference to Knickerbocker or Father Knickerbocker, pseudonym of the city. Along came a famous local cartoonist of the New York World Telegram newspaper. His name was Willard Mullen, and he took Father Knickerbocker and drew him bouncing a basketball. And the team latched onto the idea and sported it as their logo all the way through the 1964 season. A new logo with the classic round ball, as it's called, was adopted after another artist, Bud Freeman, from the J.C. Bull Advertising Company, pitched the idea to the Knicks brass in the mid-1960s, and they loved that logo, switched over to that. And what about the colors? The article also tells us that the traditional colors of orange, blue, and white are also paying homage to the early Dutch settlers of New York City, and these are the colors found on the flag of the Dutch Republic, which also goes by the name of the Prince's flag in respect to the Prince William of Orange. So get that orange color in there. I thank Culture Trip website for the great article, as it really filled the bill for educating me on the name of Knicks and Knickerbockers and a great basketball franchise in New York City, and pay some great homage to the city's history and their original settlers, the Dutch of New Amsterdam, which is now New York City. We thank you for joining us once again on this little history trip back in sports history on a great franchise in the professional sports realm, and we hope you'll join us for more as we do this 3 or 4 times a week. And now let's hear a little bit of a tidbit of history from one of my friends. In this episode, my friends are from the Gridiron Uniform Database in a recent interview I did with them. This is an excerpt from that. Tim Brulia, Bill Schaefer, and Larry Schmidt, and they're talking about some Gridiron uniforms. Some of the biggest changes and revisions that they see.
The disappearing sleeves. From the 1920s up until about World War II, the players wore full-length sleeve, from the shoulder to the wrist. Somewhere in the mid-late 40s, they started to become 3/4 length sleeves. And that, went through the 60s, probably early 70s, and then they just became short sleeves. But, what that really did for greatly impacted uniform design. Like the Giants traditionally wore Northwestern stripes on their white jerseys in the 50s and the 60s, and now they kind of try to squeeze them in there on it's just like a little cap that comes over the edge of the shoulder pad, and some teams, they look really awkward. They bend, and they just don't look right. And teams like the Colts with the UCLA stripes over the shoulder, they get cut. It used to wrap all the way around the arm, and they look great. Numbers used to be on the sleeves. Now they're up high on the shoulder pad. And it's just, over time, the jerseys basically don't have sleeves anymore.
Okay. Tim, the same question to you. What might be the biggest innovation you've seen over the last 101 plus years of the NFL to the jerseys?
Well, I concur with Larry on the sleeves, obviously, because that's perhaps the most noticeable, maybe apart from the helmet itself, where, Obviously we've gone from uncolored leather helmets to colored leather helmets to, the crude plastic helmets that Riddell came out with in the mid to late 40s to now we have the, and in fact, though, I have to say that plastic helmet in basic design lasted for quite a number of years before, I guess, in the early part of this past decade when obviously concussions became a major concern. And so helmets now are shaped, it seems like they almost change shape on a yearly basis now with, different, vent holes in the helmet and, different, bends and shapes, I guess, to better conform to the player's head. Obviously, that has had an impact on the logos on the helmets as well. Because with all the, like I say, the air holes in the helmet and the ridges and such in the helmet, it's kind of harder to slap a decal on. So the helmet, though, in that area, in design form, as far as, the looks of it has kind of gone a little I don't want to say astray, but they've gone, so they're having to, whereas before the stripe up the middle on a plastic helmet was a natural because it was kind of like a two-piece connected by like the ridge. And so they could easily stripe the helmets. Now the stripe kind of almost looks forced in a way on some of the helmets. Also, we've seen pants lately seem to be getting shorter and shorter. I mean, no question about it. We're seeing now a lot of players wearing their pants well above the knee to, even though the NFL says, you have to wear them over the knee. But obviously, I think the uniform police is almost becoming non-existent anymore. So those changes, as well as Larry, has said too with the sleeves. And I'm beginning to think we may see a trend into just doing away with what we call the TV numbers altogether. I think Cincinnati and New England, they kind of scrapped them. And they are not mandatory anyway in the NFL rulebook. They said that you should wear them, but you don't have to. So I think what could happen in the near future with the jerseys is that we're just going to start seeing more teams follow the lead of the Bengals and the Patriots and just simply, and I think the Chargers are another team as well that don't wear a TV number anymore. I think that trend's going to start continuing. So those are my issue where I think the uniforms, also socks, I guess you could say, is another one. We're seeing all sorts of variety of socks anymore. We see socks going down to the ankle, which kind of is cool in a way, because then it kind of brings back what teams wore in the 1920s when they didn't really seem to wear the white sanitary socks. But I don't like to see the lack of stripes on socks. That's kind of my thing. I socks for the most part now are solid colors as opposed to, being with stripes. But those are the issues and the trends that I have seen over the last century or so of the NFL.
Well, many thanks for that, guys. Tim Bruglia, Larry Schmidt, Bill Schaefer, Gridiron Uniform Database. Make sure you check out that website, gridiron-uniforms.com. Just an absolutely fantastic site to look at some very modern and very old jersey colors and knowing what players were wearing in professional football. And also, thanks to where we got all of our reference points. We mentioned earlier, where we got the Knicks items from, and that great article that we had. And we also want to thank sports reference sites of Basketball Reference, Pro Football Reference, Hockey Reference, and BaseballReference.com, as well as StatHead and Newspapers.com and OnThisDay.com for all the great things that they bring to us. Some great reference points, great ways of learning about sports history day-to-day basis, as well as your Sports Jersey Dispatch and PigskinDispatch.com and the SportsHistoryNetwork.com. Thanks to everybody for joining us, and until tomorrow, everybody, have a great day. Sorry, but my pitching coach just called timeout and he's coming out to the mound. I think I'm going to get yanked for a reliever. We'll see you back tomorrow for some more great sports history on Sports Jersey Dispatch Podcast. We invite you to check out our websites, jerseydispatch.com and pigskindispatch.com. Not only see the daily sports history, but to experience the preservation of great events and people that play the games. Find us on Pigskin Dispatch. It's also on social media outlets of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all your daily sports history. Pigskin Dispatch is happy to be associated with the Sports History Network, the sports headquarters of yesteryear, found at sportshistorynetwork.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorum Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.